Football clubs.
Fulham have been playing at Craven Cottage since before the Football League was formed and are a constant figure in English football.
Subscribe now to see how they compare with other big football clubs.
Fulham's lack of silverware makes them incomparable to the biggest clubs, and attendances over their entire history also don't match up to their standards. A graph illustrating the all-time number of titles and attendances of the top English clubs does not demonstrate initially that Fulham are a big club. So can a club with no major trophies be considered big?
Fulham have won plenty of titles.
Fulham have not won any major titles, but they have had their presence felt in all the divisions, winning the second division title on 3 occasions and the third division South twice. They've been close to glory, reaching the FA Cup final in 1975 and the UEFA Cup final in 2010. But they did win the Intertoto Cup in 2002.
We're loyal to the cottage.
Fulham had a bright start when it comes to crowd numbers, the second division side getting above the first division average in their first season. And numbers did not fall far behind for the first 5 years. Fulham had already been playing at Craven Cottage since 1896. And so strong was Fulham's bond with their home, snugly located by the River Thames, that they turned down the opportunity to play at a new athletic stadium. That new stadium, Stamford Bridge, was left to make its own team, and this was the beginning of a local rivalry. We cannot say that numbers fell far below the top flight average when Fulham was still in the second division in the interwar years, and even when they were relegated to the third division. But they did take a dip at the beginning of the 30s, when they were struggling at the very bottom of the Football League. Winning the third division South improved numbers, and challenging for promotion to the first division in 1933 brought attendances to just above the top flight average that year. When Fulham won the second division in 1949, their numbers peaked to their highest ever, and although they were not having an easy time of it in the first division, numbers challenged the top flight average. This dropped off after relegation back to the second division, but fans came back in their droves, meeting the top flight average after promotion again. Remaining there in the 60s, Fulham had healthy crowds most seasons, even though they were not getting strong finishes. But at the end of the 60s, they experienced a sharp drop all the way down to the second division, which resulted in low attendances in the 1970s. Fulham's mid-table finishes in the second division meant numbers had stabilised to fairly low figures for a long time, and their fall to the third division suddenly cut numbers in half, 1981 being an incredibly bleak year for the club. Further years in the third division kept numbers low, below 5,000 for some time. Fulham's recovery in the latter half of the 90s saw numbers increase, with the club's rise through the divisions. When they made it back to the top flight in 2001, they saw numbers they had not seen for decades. This was not affected too badly when sharing Loftus Road with QPR, while Craven Cottage was transitioning to an all-seater. Figures remain well above 20,000 while Fulham are in the Premier League, and tend to dip below slightly when in the second division, but not since 1960 have numbers been close to the top flight average.
We've taken some major scalps in Europe.
2010 was a special year for Fulham in the UEFA Cup. After making it through the qualifying group, Fulham's dream cup run looked to be over after going down to the favourites in Italy. After going another goal down to Juventus at home, Fulham turned it round in a dramatic encounter, with a sublime finish by Clint Dempsey, whether he meant it or not. Their run in the cup took them all around Europe, beating bigger clubs on their way. This included Hamburg in the semis, and to there they would return in the final. In a thrilling final against Atletico Madrid, Fulham put up a brave fight, but Forlan struck twice, taking the cup for Atletico after extra time.
We've had World Cup winners.
A selection of Fulham legends might include mostly stars from the glorious 60s, from the 70s, legendary Bobby Moore, and also playing until the 80s, top scorer Gordon Davies. Finally, we have a selection of key players from Fulham's UEFA Cup run in 2010.
We're London's original surviving club.
Although Fulham had been around since 1879 and had won minor competitions such as the West London League and Cup, London Challenge Cup and the Southern League, they were not voted into the second division until 1907. They finished strongly in their first season in 4th place and even reached the FA Cup semi-final, but after this they hovered mostly around mid-table and did not look close to promotion again for the rest of the pre-war period. Heading into the 20s, finishes were declining and they started to flirt with relegation. Their first relegation took place at the end of the decade, and the club then started heading towards the bottom of the league. But things turned around when they won the 3rd Division South title in 1932. And in the following season, they were able to mount a challenge for promotion to the 1st Division. That surge in form was short-lived, and by the mid-30s they had established themselves as a mid-table 2nd Division side again. By the end of the 40s, the club were on the up and won the 2nd Division title in 1949. They stuck it out in the 1st Division for a couple of seasons, then went down on their 3rd. But after indifferent finishes back in the 2nd Division, their taste for 1st Division football was satisfied at the end of the 50s. The 1960s was a great period for the club, as they peaked to finish in 10th place in the league in 1960 and were around for another 8 seasons. But those seasons were mostly battles against relegation, and when it finally happened, it set the club back by quite some way. Within 2 seasons, Fulham's were in the 3rd Division. They did make it back to the 2nd for the rest of the 70s, but were nowhere near promotion. Whilst there, they made it to the FA Cup final in 1975, but lost to West Ham, and 5 years later they fell to the 3rd Division. They did recover within 2 seasons and set their sights on promotion soon after, but were back in the 3rd Division by the mid-80s. 8 seasons with varying finishes ended with relegation to the 4th Division, but this was certainly not the end of Fulham's story. At the end of the 90s, the team were on the up, and the takeover by Al Fayed and investment into the club saw them rise through the divisions. 3 promotions in 5 years, twice as champions, saw the club in the Premier League in 2001, and there they remained for the next 14 years. In 2002, they entered and won the Intertoto Cup, enabling them to enter the UEFA Cup, where they remained for 3 rounds. Their best league finish was in 9th place in 2004, but undoubtedly the club's greatest season was in 2010, when they got all the way to the UEFA Cup final. After relegation 4 years later, Fulham have at times been yo-yoing between the divisions, but have had some good finishes in the Premier League. Fulham's lack of major trophies makes them far from one of the big clubs, but they have had some thrilling nearly moments in their history. None more so than in the UEFA Cup. But apart from that and the Intertoto Cup, they have not been European regulars. Attendances at home matches started off well, but over time they have lost support to their local rivals. They're at the lower end of the Premier League average attendances, so the club would have a long way to go to catch up with the leading clubs in England. Fulham have not appeared in a range of big matches over history, but their European giant-killing season in 2010 will be remembered forever. Fulham have had some reputable players over the years, but their most famous players have probably done greater things at bigger clubs. Fulham are one of London's notable clubs. They have spent their time in different divisions, but their recent time in the Premier League is keeping their profile relatively high, and they have been able to maintain stability. But without challenging consistently for titles or getting greater support, it is unlikely they'll ever be considered one of England's
big football clubs.
Do Fulham have the poshest fans in England?
Please comment below. Like and subscribe to Big Football Clubs to watch videos as they're released each week.